This first full week continues with a soupy Saturday here at Gulfstream Park West. That's right, this second weekend of the fall season here in Miami Gardens. The rains were heavy and they were endless seemingly throughout the Saturday night into early morning portion of this October the 10th here at GPW. As a result, no turf on the card. Main track is sloppy. We move forward. No sloppy track blues, however, for Jason and Ronnie on this second Saturday edition, Ronnie, of Gulfstream Park West. The meet officially a week old today, and clearly Mother Nature, I think first and foremost, is the big subject because we don't have turf and a sea of slop as we start out.
Yeah, so you got your handicapping. You got a lot of time to get your handicapping done for our Rainbow Six a little later on in the afternoon with that $100,000 jackpot guaranteed. Does that change if we come off the turf? So you just handicap for the main track, and I guess we'll be talking throughout the our show about how good speed has been on and off track here.
Well, it's just been good, dry or wet. I mean, that hasn't mattered. That's been the one constant on the dirt here with this meet that, again, hits its week-old mark this afternoon. Speaking of the $100,000 guarantee, I mean, that was what was up for grabs and basically minimum at stake in yesterday's Stronach 5. They bet about $120,000 into the pool. It wound up being a chalk fest, essentially, and it was more or less a Stronach pick 4. Although he barely won. I mean, Largent looked like a mortal lock in that second leg at Laurel Park. He wound up paying $210, and there was some bridge jumping in the show pool on him. But when you size up Ronnie, Largent at $210, $320 on the second winner at Laurel, who won the Punchline Stakes, and the winner at Golden Gate Fields. I mean, to get over $250 for this, I mean, that is value and then some.
Yeah, and GP West, the one horse, was the second choice behind the second or third choice. So we figured, we'd use that. So I'm sure that the team of the put the ticket together. Sure, we had a winner. I'm almost going to think we did in that particular situation, the All-Star ticket.
And it's a holiday weekend here at Gulfstream Park West. Monday, we'll have a special and somewhat very rare Monday live racing program with nine races in the mix. That card was drawn yesterday. Regular start time a little after 12 noon, and we hope the weather clears up. Certainly maybe no more rain. We'll be back on the turf tomorrow through that Columbus Day program. We've also got, as Ronnie was saying a few moments back, the $100,000 guaranteed jackpot Rainbow Six on this Saturday afternoon. That'll get underway in race 4 in this 9-pack Saturday, and that brings us into the opening pick 5 on the program. Now, we are off the turf again and a very nondescript looking, and I think that to an extent is being maybe even a little diplomatic. This is a very difficult first race where there just isn't any form to go on whatsoever, and I'm going to single the speed. I wish my horse, the number 12, Brother Sky, had drawn down towards the inside, but he might be, in a field like this, he might be fast enough to clear off. Now, can he stay the 5/8? Can he beat this field? That is very much open for debate, but I felt as though when I was playing around with, again, different incarnations of who I might use, it was either standalone potentially with Brother Sky as hopefully the dominant speed, or I was using maybe 4 or 5 horses in this first race. It's that much of a guessing game. So I am with the speed to start things out with Brother Sky. Pretty good sequence, and if I had to pick a personal highlight, Ronnie, it would be unequivocally the 5th race. That is a scheduled dirt race for 2-year-old fillies and a maiden special weight at that. There's just a lot going on where you've got a couple of firsters who I included both. One for Todd, one for Safi. Mike Maker and Amador Sanchez have second-time starters. That is a good way to cap that early pick 5.
Yeah, very interesting race in there. I got some interest in Village Queen, the 4-horse. We'll talk about that when we get to that race, but a really nice sequence. And if you get this 12 home sitting up there right now at 35-1, I like the swinging for the fences today.
Swinging for the fences. Who knows in about 50 minutes time, but I can't see this horse lower than 10-1 or maybe 15-1 when the dust settles. Again, there's not a lot per se to talk about in this race. It's a very difficult proposition to verbally express, and off that I'm going to take the 12 Brother Sky, who by my count, we've run 12 races here between Wednesday and Friday on the main track. 8 of those 12 have been won wire to wire.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with the speed, and if you remember opening weekend last weekend with the off-track speed was really prevalent, so definitely can run well. I did go with the number 9 Freelance, who's dropping to the 20 level today, showed some early interest before fading in a pair of sprints against better. With those races moved from the turf to 5 furlongs on the dirt, thought maybe he could be part of the speed equation in that opening leg, but a wide open affair.
Two horses are going to take the bulk of the play, I would imagine, in this upcoming second at 1.70 miles. It's a 3-lifetime 8K claimer. You've got the speed of the 5 more than usual, and then you've got the 4 super highway. You're taking a shot against both those horses with the 2 Earthquake, who's in good form. We'll see how well he runs. I mean, he stepped up. What do you like about Earthquake? Is it the fact that that last dirt race came up so fast at 21-1?
No, I just see a lot of speed in here. I'm going to try, and I don't know what's going to happen. If it's a speed favoring track like we've seen in the past, he might be in trouble. He's stretching out the additional 70 yards today. Rallied to come within the nose of defeating the same level of competition. That was going that 1-turn mile across town. And I just see him getting the pace needed to complement his running style today. But I'm going to try and buck the trend here, super highway, and smash on my ticket. But let's see if Earthquake could maybe, sit a nice trip and get up. We'll know probably right after the first race how good my Earthquake might do.
Well, I don't know. That might be a little premature. I don't know if the first race is a field, even if somebody does wire the race. I don't know if that's a field I'd want to use as like a true barometer, because it is such a weird-looking and random-looking group of maiden claimers. But in terms of speed, I get what you're saying. I mean, you've got the 5 more than usual. The 7 Smash, who rode a gold rail here last Saturday on opening weekend and opening Saturday, October 3rd, had liked that horse in that spot. And then you've got the 4 Super Highway, who I guess has got a comparable running style. Maybe not as a deep closing or one-paced as Earthquake, but still, this gelding by Quality Road tends to do his best from off the pace, and that was something he was pretty good at throughout the summer meet over at Gulfstream Park, and of course that includes a last-out victory over a sloppy track. And I felt as though this was a horse that didn't run well in his last start for Safi, yet has kind of rounded back into form in his 2 races for Marcio Navarro. And when it comes down to it, off this race we're looking at, again, over a sloppy track, I think he's probably going to go favored in this spot, and it's just simply the horse to beat.
Yeah, he's definitely the one to beat there. Just, I have him in second, but I mean, when I did the race, I said he's probably the one to beat, and especially with the conditions that we have this afternoon.
Now, the fact that Super Highway is in off a victory and he'll be favored in the second race, he gets the spotlight status as we move on to race number 3 with a cast of 7 here on the dirt. I'm with the number 7, as are you, Mighty Fast, who, when it comes down to it, he doesn't have that much early speed, but, I mean, when you're sizing up who's got the best recent effort, I think it's him by a very wide swath in this cast of lower-level maiden claimers.
Yeah, going to turn back to 3/4 of a mile today after returning from the layup. Finished second against the similar across town. Going 6.5, Gustavo Delgado, Christian Torres in the in the saddle today. Valid Exchange in second for me, and Ricky Run in third, but I thought Mighty Fast was the one to beat.
We'll talk about the Rainbow Six in the slop after this quick timeout here on Gulfstream Park West today.
In the 2-path. Ground on her inside. Race. And 1/4 of a mile to go, and he's 6 on top. Last of the 12 as they roll into the backstretch.
Saturday edition of GPW today with Jason and Ronnie. We are back for Act 2, and if you're just joining us, welcome to the broadcast. Rainbow Six, Ronnie, begins at about 1:45 this afternoon. We'll go 7 in the opening leg. And how's the ticket looking?
Well, we got a $43.20 ticket again this afternoon, and I went with the 10 horse in here. Cramden was actually my long shot on the turf today. I think he's really much better on the dirt, but I also use Harper Go Lucky and Sensione. I think that horse can run well in there. 2 deep in race number 5. 5, deemed essential is that first starter from Todd Pletcher. But Village Queen been keeping some really nice company. That is actually my best bet of the afternoon. And then in race number 6, I went too deep in here with Ike Capote and Skyray. That's one of those races taken off the turf. Race number 7, I believe Don't Eat the Apple is the one to beat, but I wasn't totally sold, so I used Nanita and Fiamma Mama in there. And race number 8, off the turf, 13, 14, 15, those were main track onlys, and they all look good to me in there. And then the last, just too deep with Ecology and Flawless Moon.
So looking at Cramden to start things out, I'm with you. This horse looked at least pseudo-interesting to me on the turf, yet lands in a race on the dirt where he clearly handled a route of ground and a wet track last time out, and I do prefer him in this cast, probably for the most part, that he's still lightly raced. I mean, he's only got the 2 races to this point.
Well, he's going to turn back to 7 furlongs this afternoon after Bang Zoom, we'll use an old Cramden saying there, drawing clear to defeat $16,000 maidens, going 9 on that speed, favoring sloppy track across town. Mark Cassie, Victor LeBron will be in the saddle this afternoon.
Now, who's the speed in this race? Because thankfully he does have speed. We'll see if that translates going 7 this afternoon. I would imagine the MTOs may be up close. Certainly a horse like the 14, 3 deep, who's got to get going. There's a real sense of urgency in his camp. I mean, he just did not run well last time out for Gilberto Zerpa, and the 13 Harper Go Lucky is a new claim, a relatively new claim for Joe Orsino. I just have no, despite his more plodding style, just have no, in a field like this, I just have no issues with his dirt ability to this point.
Yeah, and I threw in the number 11, Senseone. He was coming off a solid effort on the turf. He rallied strongly to finish 3rd, but he was beaten ahead, but he broke his maiden on a good track by almost 6 lengths, so I thought maybe off that he can grab a share in the race, but I like Cramden on top.
Race 5 is the race of the day, in my humble estimation, and we'll finish off this early pick 5 with a just a good-looking, very interesting multi-tiered cast of 2-year-old filly maiden special weight horses at 6.5 furlongs. Now, this race also coincides with the opener of the late pick 5, and I use 3 here. I've got 4 in the early sequence. I only use 3 in this spot, and I built this play. I'm with Ronnie. I mean, I like the 13, 14, and 15 in the 8th, but the one real silver lining in my mind to the 14 Snap Hook, who I opted to single, is not only has he just been really sharp, and not only sharp, he has stepped up his game and has done so at a pretty high level recently for Jorge Delgado. I felt as though he had just more speed than the 2 other MTOs by a fairly wide margin in that race, and he might just be the speed of the speed. So, like the recent form, like the running style of the 14 Snap Hook in the 8th race, now 2-3-5 to start, and off the bat, we've got the presence of the second time starting My Beauty Princess. I might be wrong, but I like this Penn Street race this filly by Verrazano is coming out of, and I felt as though she did enough running at a really boxcar type odd status of over 30-1 that it was worth checking out back on September 18th. She was a little sluggish from down inside. I mean, it broke about a half step slow, and after that was hustled up and chased down inside, but eventually settled and got herself into a pretty good spot beneath jockey Hector Berrios. She was a little one-paced off the far turn run, and here we go. She's tucked away in the green and white, obviously, and basically sat the pocket trip after that sluggish beginning. And although, again, lacked maybe some big-time punch from the 3/16s home, felt as though this was a good enough effort, and I'm curious to see, Ronnie, she's the first horse on the dirt coming back off this Penn Street race, because I felt as though the winner for Crichton and the runner-up for Mark Casse, I thought both those fillies ran pretty well in this September 18th maiden heat over at Gulfstream.
Yeah, we'll see if it turns into, a key race, or at least races that some horses have come out of and run exceptionally well. See how they run in there. And I went with a horse in here, Jason, a Village Queen, who is 3rd behind My Dear Girl Stakes runner-up. Rest of the story. How good was that horse in that race? That was in her 6th furlong debut. Now she turns back. She finished 2nd to Stakes Place, Happy Constitution, going a mile in the last race. Tim Ham, Victor LeBron in the irons. I just like the horses that this horse has been competing against. So I put this one right on top of my ticket for those reasons.
No, she's run fine in her 2 starts to date. 4-horse field last time out, but I'm with you. I think Happy Constitution's pretty good. And look, a mile might have been a little further than this daughter of gemologist wants to go, and she is a player. And as we were saying yesterday, good luck to Tim Ham and his Grade 1 bound day out of the office running in the Frizette later today at Belmont Park. I mean, that is one of my favorite 2-year-old filly races in the country, and she's a major player in there, unbeaten in 2 starts to date. What about, we'll get on to Safi's horse. I was going to say, what about the 2 firsters? But let's look at the recent breeze, and you evidently don't like Safi's horse in the 5 Prime Palace in this race. I felt as though this daughter of Palace sold for good money, and certainly to me looked at athletic in that OBS breeze back earlier this year. And here she is working in company with Big Frank, who didn't run all that well, may have been a little bit bias compromised off a pretty live rail here back on Thursday afternoon, but a decent little breeze at Palm Meadows. And not only does she have the connections and pedigree to fall back on, well, she also brought significantly more money as a 2-year-old in training, and she's one of the subjects, one of 3 subjects, in fact, in our Race 5 scouting report. Now, in the case of Prime Palace, she sold for around $30,000 as a yearling and then brought almost $80K as a 2-year-old in training, which I like. Very rare ride for Miguel Vasquez. He doesn't ride all that many horses for Safi, and I felt as though that was a little interesting, and that's why there's the question mark there. You've also got the Pletcher Firster and Deemed Essential. The dam was pretty good, and you've obviously had a successful family with the 4 older siblings. What do you do, Ronnie, down on the rail with the 1 Artie's Rose, who to me is more or less bred to be a turf and synthetic horse? We Miss Artie did not run at all on the dirt, yet was a very nice horse on synth, winning a couple of stakes and an unbeaten in 3 mark. That race that horse is coming out of, though, on the Ellis Park turf, I don't know if you looked at the chart. That race seemed okay, though. I mean, the winner of that race came back to finish 3rd in the Keeneland Stakes. What do you do with the Maker horse? I know you pulled a stat for the barn. What is your opinion on the 1 Artie's Rose, who to me is the X factor here?
Well, I threw it on the ticket because I like that race, and at Ellis Park, and we'll see how this horse runs. I found that stat you're talking about, Mike Maker, with his 2-year-olds going from sprints, going from turf to dirt. He's 9 for 26, 35%, 58% in the money. 373 is the return of investment. So, like the stat, though maybe this horse didn't know really what to do with the horse after that turf performance. So we'll see how this horse, if this time of the day it's an off track, or does it, the sun come out and we go fast later on. So Artie's Rose, like you said, one of those unknowns.
Yeah, no, she is a tricky read, and you respect the connections, and we'll see if they've got an ace up their sleeve. I also pulled, I know we spent a lot of time on this race, but I think it's a worthwhile race to spend a few minutes on. I pulled this Pletcher stat, not as a positive or negative, just to show, I guess more or less, that his first-time starters here over the last 5 autumn seasons in Miami Gardens have not been automatic. This is not, or hasn't been a situation, rather, where he has run one monster 2-year-old after another, where just racking up 1 win. You know what I mean? This just seems kind of like a run-of-the-mill move, where I would imagine most of the horses, 2-year-old firsters he's running this meet, are properly spotted, but clearly many of them are needing a race or 2 to really get going.
Yeah, and I looked up the other day a stat with this 2-year-olds at Gulfstream Park West on the turf, and it's even lower than that. So you could see that, he gets going, and Todd, he can jump up and beat you any given time.
No, of course. I mean, I've got the horse second,
right,
but I just felt that was an interesting just little layer to a race that's got obviously a lot going on. That is a good 5th race field. We're off the turf naturally for the 6th, and we'll go 7 furlongs as we start the late pick 4 with this cast of 2 lifetime 3 and up claimers. And in this spot, I wound up landing on your top pick, the number 8 horse in Sky Ray, who turf or dirt, I feel as though Kathy Ritvo just had this colt by Hardspun in a good spot. And, you say good spot. Clearly, a lot of people are going to like him twofold. He's down in class, and he's got that big dirt win back right around 4th of July weekend across town.
Yeah, 3 starts back. He won that race on the dirt by about 9 lengths, and his son of Hardspun, as you mentioned, gets his claiming tag sliced in half. So when the race was moved to the main track, that was the first horse that jumped off the page with me. I went to the inside horse, as you did with Ike Capote, cut him back to 7 furlongs today, used his speed to defeat those 14 maidens. That was going a 1-turn mile. good barn, Amador Sanchez. He's solid, winning consecutive races. And Amando's team, another horse that's stepping up off a win.
No, and I Capote has the potential to play out as the inside speed, too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, 7th race. Speaking of inside speed, that is the main appeal. It's that, the connections, and the last out win of the rail-posted top pick for Ronnie and I in the one Don't Eat the Apple, and a little bit of window dressing and a narrow win. I mean, you talk about a filly who was saved by the wire, but here's her last start for what it's worth back on July 30th. Again, nothing out of the ordinary happens here, but just to get us off camera and we can check out this filly from the 3/16 pole to the wire, she's probably going to be the inside speed. I mean, she's been a quick, alert breaker, yet what's interesting, Ronnie, is she may have a horse making life difficult for her in the 7 Anita, yet I came up with the scenario where even if they hook up and they really battle in like a pitch duel, you might argue that Don't Eat the Apple and the Nita are just a little more talented than anything else in the race. So even if they get hooked into what for another horse might be like a race-ending duel, they may just run 1-2 around the track.
Yeah, and Nita stepping up, stretching out, and rocketing clear in that race to defeat those 12-5 maidens. Won that race impressively by 6 lengths for Antonio. Ed Gonzalez handling the stretch out from 5.5 to 6 furlongs. Don't Eat the Apple for all the reasons you mentioned. I thought those were the logical two, and a Fiamma Mama cutting back to 3/4, thought maybe can grab a share for Gustavo Delgado.
MTOs are where it's at least as far as like the real upper echelon of the 8th race field is concerned, as we gear up and go a mile and a 16th here on the dirt. And there's a lot to unpack, and I think between the 13 Hard Lightning, who's shown glimpses of being okay, and he's off a trainer change to Victor Barboza. I already talked about how good the 14 Snap Hook has been with his early speed. And Peter's done an excellent job with Crea's Brooklyn Law, who certainly from an ability standpoint is a very good fit with the 2 horses I just mentioned. My one issue with him, Ronnie, is he's such a grinder, this horse. He just lays back and plods so drastically. Is that an Achilles heel over this track? We don't know.
It could be. He's going to turn back to the mile in the 16th. After you mentioned he surrendered that late lead, went second in the rained out 25 optional claimer, going 9 furlongs in the slop. Snap Hook, 7 for 9 on the fast track and the money. Okay on the wet track, but I think Snap Hook might be the speed in there. And Hard Lightning, the 13, is the one I thought might sit a trip if there's some speed in here right off the pace. So that's basically how I saw the race playing out with those outside horses that are not really that far outside with the scratches to the inside.
Yeah, you've got Indamage, a potential speed, along with the 4 African Heritage. So I'm hoping Snap Hook, he's got more quality than those horses, and he's been way sharper than the other 2 horses I just mentioned. But if he can't clear and he's chasing or vying 3 wide, that won't be an easy trip, and I hear you. This race does at least have, I think the argument's there that they could be flying up front, and that would only obviously help the 13 Hard Lightning and certainly the late-running 15 Crea's Brooklyn Law. We'll wrap things up here, the Sunday nightcap at about 4:30 Eastern, and you and I absolutely in the same zip code here, boxing the same super. You know, I was between a rock and a hard place because I feel as though my top pick, the 4 Flawless Moon, does have the sharpest recent form, and in a race like this for 8,000, that recent form, in my mind, carries a lot of weight. But again, you know, you're talking about maybe the sharpest, most talented horse, maybe not by a huge margin, but still, I think the reality is that Flawless Moon's been a little better of late than just about everybody else in here, but he doesn't have much early speed.
Yeah, and Decology, the other horse that we have on our ticket, is cutting back to 3/4 of a mile with the tactical ability. They need to use their current speed bias we've been seeing on the main track to his advantage for Jose D'Angelo, Embassy El Jaramillo, Flawless Moon, and I used the 5. Well, we used the same 4. We just boxed them around.
Boxed up the favorites here as we go to our favorite. There's no boxing with Pete Aiello. He stands by himself, and he's coming up next. That's right. Well, you got Cramden running earlier today, too,
Zoom.
by the way. Absolutely. Pete, we'll send it over to you, and everybody, you'll have Ronnie and myself with you throughout the afternoon.